Hey guys, PK here. Hope you're doing really well. Today I'm going to be talking about the 3 ways you can actually start or continue your property journey. So if you find this useful, then if you're watching it on Facebook, give it a like, because then the Facebook algorithm means that you'll get more videos exactly like this. And if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe below if you get value, because then you'll get more videos like this as well. So the 3 ways that you can start property investing, and just before I get on to that, I'm going to talk about a word called occupation. Now, occupation we know to mean job, right? Like what you do for a living. But if you look at the word occupation, it comes from the Latin word occupare, right? Occupare, which means seize. I just thought this was super ironic because when I posted a question on my Facebook group a couple of days ago asking, do you like or dislike your job? The vast majority of people said that they hated, they disliked their job, they didn't enjoy it. There was a whole bunch of really funny gifs. And so occupation, occupare in Latin means seize. It comes from the word called seize. You're seized by your occupation. Your life is seized by your job. And really that's not a good way to live. And I know that so many people want to use property investing to get out of that seizure, to get out of that state of being seized by their occupation. And there are 3 ways to go about it. Now, the first way to go about it is completely free. Okay, it's completely free of cost. You can do this without anyone. And that way is simply to educate yourself, right? So if you're a brand new property investor, or if you already have 1 or 2 properties, maybe 3 properties, but they aren't performing for you, then you have an option to do it yourself. You have an option to listen to all the podcasts, to read all the books, to network, get out and amongst people who have done it before, go to online Facebook forums and all these things and try to figure it out yourself. Now, the upside of that methodology is that it's completely free. Okay, the downside is that you'll probably make many mistakes because you're trying to educate yourself. It's like an engineer trying to build a bridge without having done a formal education course. So that path is free. Many people have done it in the past and many people will do it again, but it does have some risks, right? There's potential for making mistakes. There's potential for a lack of confidence, meaning that you're paralyzed or seized in fear and you don't actually do anything. And also there's this massive risk of doing it for free, of kind of not knowing exactly what to do, because everyone says a slightly different thing. There's 1,001 strategies with 1,001 nuance behind them. So exactly what is the best for you, you don't know what you don't know. Okay, so I think a lot of people are starting to clue on to the fact that doing it yourself is free. That's a great tick, but a lot of the crosses, the risks involved, the more higher potential for making mistakes, and the fact that it's a higher risk way to go based on trying to synthesize different people's opinions and really chalk out the best strategy for you. The second way to go about property investing is using a buyer's agent. Now, I'm not a buyer's agent. I can speak very freely about buyer's agents. Some are very good, others are very bad. About 10 years ago, there was probably 150 buyer's agents in Australia. And then the Melbourne-Sydney boom happened when a lot of first-time investors did really, really well and they became buyer's agents. And good on them for doing that. I mean, it's a very lucrative career. But the vast majority of buyer's agents have less than 2 or 3 properties themselves. Now there's about 1,000, 1,100, 1,200 buyer's agents in Australia. And, many are good, but most aren't. And that's just because they're not experienced enough. They've had some great fortune in the Sydney-Melbourne boom between 2013 and 17, and now they're helping others. Now, a buyer's agent is good because they do everything for you. But they cost a pretty penny. A good buyer's agent will cost you between $12,000 and $15,000, and in reality, all they are is a middleman, right? So someone does the suburb research for them. Many come to me, many go to Ripe House, other places to do the suburb research for them, and then they outsource the inspections to a property manager, right on the ground in the location where this research has led them too. So really the client in many cases, if not the vast majority of cases, is really paying for a middleman, someone to sort of hold their hand through the process. And look, there's real value to that. If you have zero interest in property and if you have absolutely 0 hours left in the week, after everything is said and done, you know, kids, putting them to bed, going to work, all that sort of stuff, then a buyer's agent could be useful. The third option for you, so the first option was doing it yourself. The second option was a buyer's agent, which is very expensive, you know, $10,000, $15,000 per property. And if you want to acquire 4, 5, 6 properties, then that's a couple of deposits that you're giving up. But having said that, if you're a busy CEO or a busy business owner, has not even 1 or 2 hours left in the week, then, you know, it's better to use them than not do anything. Now, the third option you have, and I'm going to admit that I'm got a self-interest in here, is to educate yourself. Now, the power of education is, well, let's just start with finances. It's cheaper than a buyer's agent, okay? It doesn't cost nearly as much as $10,000 to $15,000. But also, with education, you are self-sufficient. You don't need to rely on trusting so-called experts. You don't need to rely on, you know, outsourcing the responsibility, especially if you want to buy 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 properties. If you have an aspiration to hold more than one investment property, then educating yourself is going to be a much more cost-effective solution than outsourcing to a buyer's agent every single time, because you just need to educate once and then you know it. If you know the methodology, regardless of whether it's 2005, 2015, 2025 or 2030, the data all changes but the methodology stays the same. Okay, so that's one advantage of education. It's cheaper and you become self-sufficient. The second benefit of education is that you get confidence, right? Even if you outsource it to a buyer's agent, you know, 9 times out of 10, no, that's probably being a bit harsh. 7 times out of 10, you could have done as good a job, if not better, yourself with education. Actually, 9 times out of 10, I would say. There are some very good buyer's agents, I must admit, but 9 times out of 10, if not 9.5 times out of 10, you can get as good a result by self-education, you know, by doing a course, a good course that focuses on data, than a buyer's agent. Because that's exactly what a buyer's agent's doing anyway. If you can learn to do the SUBURB research yourself, and if you can learn to outsource the property management inspection, so you're not having to waste your weekends, then you can be your own buyer's agent and save that cost and that time, right? So you can effectively become your own buyer's agent by doing a good course or a good education program in property investing. The third benefit of doing it yourself is really that you can make sure that you create a long-term strategy, not just a short-term strategy. So with a lot of these property advisors and buyer's agents, they may or may not get you a good deal for the specific brief that you give them, but they're not going to help articulate long-term strategy questions. For example, if you want to earn $100,000 of passive income after all costs in 10 or 15 years, how many properties will you need? What would their respective yields need to be? What should the timing or sequence of those purchases be? What should the value of each of those purchases be? What does the total portfolio value need to be? Which properties are you buying with the intent of always holding versus the intent of selling in the future to pay off the debt so that you can retire unencumbered by debt? What should your very first steps be, right? I mean, I could go on and on and on, but this all requires financial modeling, which a buyer's agent, as much as they will talk about strategy, they talk about short-term strategy, not long-term strategy. Okay, so it's kind of like you don't know what you don't know. If you don't know what you don't know, then you may think you found a fantastic property, and many people will get you into a property in Leichhardt, in Ipswich, or in Logan, or Moreton Bay, or these areas that have positive cash flow but absolutely no growth. I'm generalizing here, but I think you know what I mean. And so you'll go to a buyer's agent and say, I want positive cash flow property, and they'll tick that box. But is that actually right for your portfolio? And I can tell you that if you're starting your property journey, you don't want simply positive cash flow. You need growth at the same time, and you don't need to make that trade-off if you know how to do this, okay? So that's the third advantage of doing a course. You can actually be the master of your own destiny. Now, the downsides of doing a course versus option one is that yes, it costs money, all right? It's not in the realms of $8, $9, $10, $11,000, but it's not $100, $200 either. It's not like option one, which is free of cost. And yes, there's many courses out there for $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000, but at the same time, you get what you pay for. So you will need to spend a good, decent chunk of money to learn. And one misconception that people have is, look, I don't have time to learn. You know, I have a family, a couple of kids, I work, both of us work, you know, mum and dad work, a 9 to 5 job, then we have extracurricular activities. By the time we get the kids to bed, we have hardly half an hour spare for us. Now, to learn property investing, it takes about 2 or 3 hours a week for about 6 weeks. You can spread that across a longer time frame, you can bring that into a shorter time frame, but that's the amount of effort it takes. And I'm gonna put myself out on a brink here and put my neck out and say, you can actually become more advanced in property investing by investing 3 hours a week for about 6 weeks than more than 80-90% of buyer's agents. How? The reason is that you're learning for someone who has done this using data, right? So what you need to learn is strategy development, long-term, short-term, suburb selection, that is the most important, using data, property selection within the right suburb, valuation so you can buy under market value, property search so that you can buy and find on-market opportunities as well as off-market opportunities, then negotiation, and then how to renovate. And it seems a bit daunting, but if someone lays it out in simple English, in a very matter-of-fact way, then you can very quickly realize that actually this isn't that hard, right? This is actually pretty simple, and I can be the master of my destiny. And if I want to buy 3, 4, 5, 6 properties, I'm completely self-sufficient. And that's a really good feeling to know that if I just follow this system, I will generate my 100K of passive income. It's not going to happen in 5 years, may not even happen in 10 years, but I have an exact game plan to get there, and I know exactly where to buy, what to buy, and how to buy it without giving up my weekends, without spending hours and hours and hours and hours and hours on realestate.com.au or domain to do research, right? Because advanced property investors don't even touch those sites for research purposes. All right, so those are the 3 ways that you can start your property investing or progress your property investing. Do it yourself, high risk way, but free. The second is buyer's agent, saves a lot of time, but very, very expensive and no guarantee of a good result, you know, more than half the time. And the third way is education. Upside, you become self-sufficient, save on tens of thousands of dollars of cost on agents and advisors, at the same time getting as good a result as them without giving up your weekends. Downside, it still costs a bit of money. All right, so I really don't have any agenda in this video. I obviously have a course. If you're interested in that, you can let me know, but if you're not interested in that, also let me know, because I know a couple of very, very good buyer's agents. I don't get commissions or anything like that. And although I'm not a buyer's agent, I'm happy to refer you to a very good one. And equally, if you want to do it yourself, I'm more than happy to give you some tips and tricks, and that's why I do free strategy sessions. Alright guys, so hopefully that was super useful. If it was, just leave a like or love below, or comment if you have any questions. But those are the 3 ways to make sure that you do start or progress your property journey. Pros and cons of each. I firmly think that 98% of Australians can do it themselves. With some training, it's not difficult, not time consuming, you don't need to be Einstein, and you can seize your life back. You can leave your occupation, your work, and actually do the things that you love to do with the people that you love to do them, in 10 or 15 years time, okay, if you play your cards right. Okay guys, hopefully that was useful. If it was, just let me know in the comments below, ask questions, or subscribe, or just give me a like or love. Thanks guys, my name's PK, take care, bye.